Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's expert webinar titled Exploring Kafka Features. I'm Satyakshi from Spring People. We are India's largest enterprise training provider. So, in today's webinar, we have Mr. P. Rajesh, who has 20 years of diversified experience in various roles such as programmer, administrator, SME, and architect across the software development lifecycle with special focus on middleware administration and implementation using WebSphere, WebLogic, JBoss, Tivoli, product family along with Java, Oracle, SQL Server, and Informix database. He also has more than 12 years of experience in handling corporate trainings in different technologies for multiple CMM level 5 companies across the globe and holds multiple certifications such as IBM Certified WebSphere Instructor, Oracle Certified WebLogic Administrator, and Red Hat Certified JBoss Administrator. Our expert P. Rajesh will introduce you to Kafka and its fundamentals, including workflow and cluster architecture. He will also talk about how to install it and the basic operations along with a few examples. He will also throw some light on the integration of Kafka with Storm, Spark, and Twitter, along with tools and application. If you have any questions during the session, please type it in the chat box and they will be addressed by Rajesh after the presentation is over. Without further ado, let's start today's session. Now, I would like to call Rajesh to start the session. Over to you, Rajesh.
Thank you very much, Satyashi, for such a wonderful introduction. So let me start this webinar. So I hope my screen is visible to everybody.
Yes, it is visible.
Yeah. Hi, good afternoon, one and all. As you know, Apache Kafka is one of the popular technologies nowadays because these days we are working on the digital platforms a lot, and social media is playing a vital role in our lives, and again digital economy, and most of the time we work on large amounts of data. So in such scenario, the Kafka role becomes very vital. So first of all, congratulations to all of you because you have taken your time to explore what are the features of Kafka and what is Kafka, etc. So let me give you the details and let me introduce you to the Kafka to the possible extent within the time limit we had for this webinar. I'll introduce you. First of all, I'll tell you what this Kafka is. You might heard about it, but this was first originated in LinkedIn because you know, right? LinkedIn is one of the popular social platform. So when they are handling with a lot of their users and everybody is giving their data, so there is a lot of data streaming and all, so they want to handle the data properly and they want to able to handle all the communication happening on the LinkedIn platform. So to overcome that, they have created or they have designed this Kafka. So later it becomes an open source Apache project in 2011, and since 2012 onwards it becomes the first class Apache project. In 2012 it was recognized as one of the open source Apache project, and now we call it as Apache Kafka. And of course there are some platforms and there are some vendors who also implemented this and they have their own versions, I mean, in association with Apache. But anyway, the Kafka behavior and how it works is similar. So basically, this is written in Scala and Java languages. Basically, if you ask me what is this Kafka, it is a publish and subscribe based fault tolerant messaging system. I hope you know what is a messaging system. I'm going to elaborate later on this messaging system. So I can say that it is a publishing and subscribing based, pub sub based fault tolerant messaging system. Not only that, it is scalable, fast, and distributed by design. These are the advantages with this Kafka. Because of these features, it becomes a kind of leader in this platform, in this vertical. You might have aware of multiple messaging systems in industry. When we compare this Kafka with other messaging systems, the best part is it's having better throughput. I hope you are aware of the word throughput. I mean, throughput is nothing but how many requests we can handle in a period of time. That is called as throughput from the performance terminology. So this Kafka has better throughput when compared with other messaging systems. And also it is having the partition facility. It is having built-in partitioning facilities there. And we also take care of replication of the data. Because of this replication, we can able to take care of the fault tolerance. So the major features are these are going to make it a good fit to work with large scale message processing applications, particularly when you work on stream based applications, etc. So this is best for the applications like Twitter, LinkedIn. Not only that, even for enterprise applications also it's good. But I think it is a fair thing if I give you an idea on messaging system, because I told you that this Kafka is publishing and subscription based of messaging system. And also I'm saying that it is fault tolerant messaging system. I'm talking about many features of it like throughput, partitions, replication, etc. So let us try to understand what is a messaging system actually. What is the role of this messaging system in industry? If you take any messaging system, this is responsible for transforming the data. I mean, say transferring the data from one application to another application. For example, if you have two applications, say application A and application B, if you don't have this messaging system, if you want to make these two applications communicate with each other, both the applications should be available at the same time and they should have good connectivity, and then only they can able to communicate with each other. Say for example, if you are using a web application from your browser or from your mobile, whatever it may be, or if you try to access that, how do you able to access it? If the other application is available, if it is reachable, then only you can send the request and your request will be addressed. Of course, it is client server architecture. And if you take another real-time scenario, if you call one of your friend through a mobile, so if you treat these two things as two different applications, if the other person is available and if the other person is also pick the call, then only both of you can able to converse with each other. So that is the scenario for the direct communication between two applications. It might be any application, might be Java, .NET, or any other platform. But instead of that, if you switch to the messaging part, and like say for example, we can take an email or we can message to our folks. In that case, what happens? It doesn't matter whether the other person is available at the same time or not, but the message will be delivered and they can receive the message and they can get the message conveyed whenever they are available. In the similar fashion, in the enterprise environment also, when there is a need of communication among multiple applications and multiple platforms, without messaging system, it will be very difficult. By using this messaging system as an integration platform, this messaging system can able to receive the message from any program, and also it can deliver the message to any program. So that what happens, these applications really not required to worry about how they are sharing with their partner and whether the other application is available or not. It is not required. As an application, if application A wants to communicate with application B, whatever it may be, it will send the message to application B through a messaging system. So this messaging system will hold that message and it will deliver that message to the target application. So because of this, these two applications can communicate independently, asynchronously, and as and when they are available. There is time independence, there is communication independence, and also there is no synchronization dependency. Unless until if certain functionality is demanded, there is no need of synchronization. These two can communicate in the asynchronous manner. So that is the real role of messaging system. And again, I'm using a word called a distributed messaging system. What is this? Actually, this distributed messaging is the concept based upon a reliable message queuing. Let us imagine a queue. I mean, most of you might aware of these queues. Say, for example, you can imagine queue as an object or as a container which can hold n number of messages. So a program which is sending the message, generally we call it as a producer, can send the message and can put the message in that queue, and the receiver, that is the program which is consuming it, can able to consume it. So these applications which are located in distributed systems, and they might use different technologies, they might use different protocols, etc., but still they can able to communicate with each other. And this distributed messaging is mostly based upon reliable message queuing. Reliability in the sense, the message should be delivered in the reliable manner. We don't lose the message, and also the messages will not be replicated, and there should not be any problem with the message, and it should be delivered in the proper reliable manner. That is the main concept of this distributed messaging. Of course, as I told you, these messages are going to be queued asynchronously between the client application and messaging system. So the producer, the program which is sending the message, or the program which is receiving the message, both can able to communicate in the asynchronous manner. Say, as a producer, I can send the message and I can push the message, and the message will be stored in the messaging system. That's all. I don't require to wait till I get a response. In the similar fashion, the other side of the application also, whichever it is receiving, it really doesn't bother about the producer or who generated the message. It simply connects to the messaging system and it receives in the asynchronous manner. So here the crucial thing is the messaging system should be available either to receive the message from the producer or to deliver the message to the consumer. So when we are working with this, there are two patterns we use generally when we are working with this messaging system. One of the pattern is called point-to-point messaging, and the other pattern is called as publish and subscribe. In short, we call it as pub-sub messaging system as well. I'll explain you what it is basically. Say, for example, if you talk about point-to-point messaging system, these messages are stored or persisted in a queue, and either one or more consumers can consume the messages in the queue. So one producer is producing the message, and that message is stored in this queue, and later either one or more consumers can consume the message which is stored in the queue. But the point we need to remember here is, when a consumer is consumed a particular message, that can be only by one consumer. If I have 10 consumers, I may allow all 10 consumers to consume it, but whoever receives the message or whoever consumes the message first, they only get the message. Once it is consumed by a consumer, that message will be removed from the queue and it is no more available for other consumers. So in point-to-point messaging system, what I mean to say here is, there is one producer and there is one consumer. We might have more number of consumers who are eligible to consume it, but the message will be produced only once and the message will be consumed only once. So as I said, once the consumer read the message in the queue, it will disappear from that queue. It's no more available. Okay. So to make it simple, say for example, let us take any big e-commerce applications. You might have multiple consumers to process the orders, but once the order is processed by one consumer, other consumer cannot able to process the order. Say if I publish my order, and if I have multiple suppliers who can able to accept any of the order, then it is visible and it is available to all the suppliers of my order. But if one supplier accept the order, that's it. It is not available to others. Others cannot able to accept it. In such scenarios, we use point-to-point messaging. In this case, the queue is the object in which all these messages are stored. And you have another kind of messaging is also, before going to that, this diagram will help you to understand how this point-to-point messaging works. So the sender is going to send a message, and the message is storing in the queue, and the receiver is going to get it. That's all. Now let's talk about the publish and the subscribe messaging system. In this publish and subscribe messaging system, these messages are persisted in a topic. So the object or the location where these messages are stored is called as topic. The main difference is, unlike a point-to-point system, here consumers can subscribe to one or more topics and consume all the messages in that topic. So here consumers are going to subscribe to a topic and they can consume all the messages which are stored in that topic. So what happens here is the message producers, generally who are creating or who are responsible to produce this message, are called as publishers, and the programs who are consuming these messages are called subscribers. This is the technical term we use. In the point-to-point messaging, we are using the terminology called producer and consumer, and here we are using the terminology like publisher and subscriber. So for example, if you take an example, we are using satellite TVs. You can have a dish. If you go to the dish, that dish might have hundreds of channels. So once you subscribe for a package, all the channels will keep aired. But as a consumer, you can see the channel whatever you like it. So in the similar fashion, when you are using this publishing and subscribing mechanism, the producer simply broadcast the message, and the messages can be consumed by all the subscribers. So if you remember, I told you that Kafka is a messaging environment which is implementing this pub sub implementation. So this Kafka is fit into this kind of messaging system. Let us talk more on this. Okay, this diagram helps you to understand how it works. So a sender is going to publish the message. If you look at this here also, you can see the message queue. Anyway, ultimately the messages are going to store in queue only, but the topics are defined and these messages are associated with the topics, and the consumers are going to subscribe for the topics and the publishers are going to publish for the topics. But ultimately the communication is in the form of the message. In the back end, it is going to use queue only, but it is not point-to-point messaging. It is publishing and subscription kind of messaging. Now let's come back to this Kafka. If you ask me what is this Kafka, it's nothing but a distributed publish subscribe messaging system and a robust queue that can handle a high volume of data and enables you to pass messages from one endpoint to another endpoint. You might be aware of many messaging system platforms in the market. Of course, they are good and they're reliable, but what is the main distinction between Kafka and other things is it's so robust. It can handle large amount of data. It's the throughput is so high, and it will give you most reliable message delivery platform. That is the advantage here. So this is best suitable for both offline as well as online message consumption. I think you are aware of the difference between online and offline consumption. Basically, why? Because you can consume the messages online when it is available, and also it can be consumed later also. And the main important thing is all these messages are stored and persisted on the disk so that we can able to replicate them on the disk, and these are replicated within the cluster also to prevent the data loss. So here the two concepts what Kafka is using is storing the messages on the disk, and also we are going to have a Kafka cluster. When you say cluster, it is nothing but more number of instances of the same configuration and more number of instances which are handling with the same data, so that we call it as a cluster. So we have the replica of the data into different instances so that the consumers can able to connect to any of the cluster member. I mean, generally we can use the term called as node. We are going to have a node, and the node is going to be a part of the cluster, So the consumers can able to connect to the cluster, any node of the cluster, and they are accessible to the data. So by using the clustering, by using data replication, and by storing the data onto the disk, Kafka is so effective to handle large amount of data, to handle this publishing and subscription. And if you ask the details, basically this Kafka is stateless. It is not having the mechanism to store the things permanently. I mean, the messages are stored in the disk, but the Kafka cannot able to maintain the state of the messages and all. That is the reason it is built upon Zookeeper. So what, if you ask me what is Zookeeper, it is also one of the product of Apache. It is a synchronization service. It helps you to synchronize the services. So the Kafka, which built upon Zookeeper and which is working in association with Zookeeper, is going to maintain the status of the messages, and it can well manage the communication and the status of the messages, and it can store large amount of messages, etc. It's good fit. I mean, if you're talking about integration, it is good to integrate with other Apache products like Storm and Spark, because these are the products which really are into streaming and into the data analysis. So that the combination of the Kafka with the Storm and Spark will help you to work with the real-time data streaming and data analysis products. Let me explain you the benefits of Kafka briefly. I mean, here I can say that there are 4 important benefits because of this. It is more reliable. As I told you, this is distributed. Of course, I hope you know, if we can able to distribute or arrange the environment across multiple systems and multiple machines, generally we call it as distributed. Because of this distributed nature, it can be handled by multiple systems. So because of that we get scalability, and also because of that we get availability also. And one more important feature here is it can be partitioned. Here in Kafka, one topic can be partitioned into multiple sub partitions. Not only that, it can be replicated. And again, it is fault tolerant. Means if one of the Kafka node is not available, other Kafka node can handle it. Because of all these features, Kafka is reliable to use this in the data intensive projects, and also real-time data intensive projects where we need very heavy analysis, etc. And one more benefit is scalability. Already I told you the distributed nature and the clustering nature will make it scalable. So you can scale this without any downtime. You can keep adding the cluster nodes, and you can keep removing the cluster nodes without affecting working of it. And the third benefit you get is durability, because the Kafka is using distributed commit log. That means the messages are persisted on the disk as fast as possible, so it is durable. So we don't lose any messages. It is going to be distributed, and it is going to use distributed commit log, so it will be committed to the disk at the quickly. And the fourth important feature is performance. Yes, generally what is the problem we face in industry is when you look for the reliability, when you look for the availability, most of the technologies will show impact on performance, because the performance and reliability are two different factors which are inversely proportionate. Because if you want to go with reliability, we need to do lot of availability mechanisms, so it might impact on the performance. But Kafka is not like that, because it has a high throughput for both publishing as well as subscribing messages. At the same time, it will also remain stable even when it is performing the data in TBs. It can even perform many TB of messages stored on the disk. If you ask me, it can process at least 2 million records per second. That is the capability of Kafka. If you configure it properly, it can easily handle 2 million records per second without any influence on the performance. So because of all these features, it's become one of the prominent technology in this messaging middleware. Let me give you some use cases to make you understand generally in which cases we use Kafka. One of the best use cases for metrics, because this is often used for operational monitoring data. So if you go for any applications, any platforms, if you want to monitor the data and in live, suppose if you want to see your traffic, your application traffic, and if you want to monitor it, and if you want to analyze it, that Kafka is the best fit. So in each and every project, wherever the metrics play a vital role, there is a role for the Kafka. And one more best use case is log aggregation solution. Sometimes what happens is multiple applications keep logging, uh, they generate the log, and there is a need to integrate this log, there is a need to aggregate this log, etc. So Kafka can be used across an organization to collect the logs from multiple services, and you can make them available in a standard format to multiple consumers. So you can gather all the logs and you can aggregate them and you can store them in one location. If required, you can organize them in the form of topics, and also you can make the logs available to multiple consumers. That is the best fit because it is having high throughput, it is having reliability, and it is having best performance, and it can work with large amounts of data. So generally logs are so heavy, so many systems will generate heavy log. So if you want to work with this log aggregation in the real time, Kafka is the best fit. Of course, even offline log also we can work with it. And one more best use case is stream processing. Like as I told you, if you think about the popular frameworks like Storm and Spark, these are streaming read data from a topic. So here Kafka will provide the topic, and these are going to stream the data by reading from a topic. And also we can process it, and we can write process data to a new topic, etc. So this data will be available for their users and applications. So in all these scenarios, in such kind of scenarios, the Kafka is best fit, but it doesn't mean that we should not use in the regular enterprise applications. Kafka can be used at any place, but it is the best requirement and the needed place in such case of use cases. So I hope by this time you understand what is Kafka and what is the role of it and where it fits. Basically, Kafka is a messaging system. So let me talk about it. So what is the need for Kafka? This Kafka is unified platform for handling all the real-time data feeds. That is the advantage here. And it supports low latency message delivery and also gives guarantee for fault tolerance in the presence of machine failures. Even though a machine fails, it will guarantee the message because it is distributed, and it is having low latency message delivery. The messages can be delivered quick, and even though the machine fails, it guarantees the message. And also it has the ability to handle large number of diverse consumers. As I told you, it's very fast and it can perform 2 million writes per second. Because of all these things, Kafka is becoming very vital and important. Now let us try to understand some terminology and some fundamentals of Kafka. If you observe this diagram, here you can understand the main terminologies related to Kafka. Here you can see Kafka brokers. In the Kafka brokers, you can see a leader and you can see followers. And again, you can see replicas, replica 1, 2, 3, like that. And again, you can see some topics. And within the topic, you can see the partitions, partition 1, partition 2, partition 3, etc. And again, you can see some numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. So I'll explain you what is this. Basically, as I told you, Kafka is having a node which is called as broker. Technically, the Kafka server, which is a part of a cluster, I mean, we call it as Kafka node, and also we call it as a broker. This broker is responsible to receive the messages and to store the messages and to deliver the messages to the consumers. And on this Kafka brokers, we define the topics. So because I told you this pub sub mechanism is based upon the topics, so a publisher can publish data to the topics. And if you have a topic, that one topic can be divided into multiple partitions. If you look at this diagram, you have partition 1, partition 2, partition 3, etc. And the producer can able to publish the data to any partition of the topic, no problem. And then these partitions are handled by different brokers of Kafka. If you look at this, partition 1 is handled by server 1, and partition 2 is handled by server 2, and partition 3 is handled by server 3. I'll explain you why it is happening and all. And from there, it is going to store the data. Not only that, it is also replicating these messages in the topics. Then when you see the right hand side, you can see consumer group. Consumer group in the sense, all the consumers who are having similar group ID are called as consumer group. You might have consumer group or you might have individual consumers. All these consumers can connect to these Kafka brokers and they can receive the message. So if you look at this overall, the producers are publishing the data to the topics, and these topics are associated with the Kafka brokers. And from these Kafka brokers, the consumers are receiving the messages. So let me explain you in detail what is the meaning of each and every terminology of this, so that you can understand it very easily and you understand what is this. Actually, if you remember the diagram, in the diagram, the topic is configured into 3 partitions. Already I told you, you can see partition 1, partition 2, and partition 3. If you look at this diagram, in the partition 1, you can see 0 and 1. In partition 2, you can see 0, 1, 2, 3, and partition 3, you have 0. What are all these things? These are called offsets. I can say that offset is nothing but you can think this offset like an index in an array. So you have the offset factors. If you see that partition 1 has 2 offset factors, 0 and 1, and the partition 2 has 4 offset factors like 0, 1, 2, and 3, and partition 3 has 1 offset factor, 0. And if you see that ID, the ID of the replica is the same as the ID of the server that hosts it. So if you look at this, you have the replicas. The replica ID also will be the same when compared with the ID what it is having. I'm going to talk about these replicas once again. So as of now, this is what we have. And let us assume in the Kafka, we can define the replication factor. This replication factor is nothing but we are telling how many times that has to be replicated. That is called as replication factor. Let us assume if the replication factor of the topic is set to 3, then what happens? The Kafka will create 3 identical replicas of each partition and place them in the cluster to make available for all its operations. So here there are 2 things you need to understand. A topic is there, and a topic can have either one partition or multiple number of partitions. Here in our topic we have 3 partitions are there. And again, you can define the replication factor. Replication factor tells you how many replicas you want. If I give replication factor as 1, it will maintain 1 copy. If I give replication factor as 2, it maintains 3 copies, like that. If I set the replication the replication is 3, it will create 3 identical replicas of the same partition. And all these replications are going to be placed in the cluster. As I told you, cluster is nothing but association of multiple Kafka nodes and Kafka brokers, where we treat it as a single entity. Then because we have multiple nodes and because we have multiple cluster members, it is going to balance the load in a cluster. To make this load balancing, each broker stores one or more of the partitions. I mean, what I'm trying to say here is one broker should not be overloaded. If you have 3 partitions, all the 3 partitions should not be handled by one single server. That is the reason if you see that in the diagram you have 3 servers or 3 brokers, I can say each broker is handling one partition. So because of that, the load will be distributed properly and there will be a best performance. And as you see in the diagram, multiple producers and multiple consumers can publish and retrieve messages at the same time because it has the capability to receive and to produce. Let me give you a more understanding on the topic. What is a topic? Basically, a stream of messages belonging to a particular category is called as topic. For example, let us take sports, let us take weather, let us take stocks. All these are, you can very easily understand the data belonging to the particular category. We are going to define it as a topic, or we get a stream of messages. If you talk about stock application, it keep getting the data, stream of data related to the stocks, etc. So this we are going to store in the topics. Again, these topics can split into partitions. That is our choice. For each topic, Kafka keeps a minimum of one partition. That is mandatory. And each such partition contains messages in an immutable ordered sequence. If you look at that in the partition, all these messages are placed in sequence. And again, this partition is implemented as a set of segment files of equal sizes. So if you look at the partition, it is going to have the files with the equal size of the segment files. So that is what you can make it. I mean, to make it simple, technically, we group the similar kind of data in the form of a topic. Particularly in Kafka, each topic will have at least one partition, and after that you can make more number of partitions, no problem. Let me explain you what is this partition exactly. Because of these partitions, you can handle the messages an arbitrary amount of data. Because say for example, if I have one topic and if multiple producers wants to send the topic, and if it is a one single piece, all they have to connect to one. But because I'm dividing this into multiple partitions, when multiple partitions are handled by multiple brokers, so that multiple producers can send the messages, and these messages can be stored in any partition logically, so that multiple brokers can handle them, so we can give the best throughput. That is the reason we are logically dividing the topic into logical units. We call it as a partition. And what is this partition offset actually? As I told you, this each partition has a unique sequence ID. I mean to say, if you place a message in a partition, each message in the partition will have a unique sequence ID. We call it as offset. So the numbers what you see 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, these are all partition offsets. So you can understand how many messages are placed in that partition, and once a message is placed, a sequence ID will be given, that is called as partition offset. So like this, Kafka is organizing the data in the form of topic, and a topic is divided into partitions, and in each partition you are going to have offsets. And what is this replica of the partition? Again, I used the word called as replica. I mean, these replicas are nothing but backup of a partition. Say, for example, if I create a topic, if I say that partitions 3, replica 3, what does it mean is the topic will have 3 partitions, and again, each partition will have 3 backups, 3 copies of the data. That is called as backup. These replicas are never read or write the data. I mean, only the main partition will do the reading and writing, but these are used only as the recovery for that. Just we use them to prevent the data loss. In case of any disaster, we can recover the data from these replicas. In that case, you may get a doubt why we need more number of replicas. Why can't we have only one? Particularly, this Kafka works with the large amount of data, particularly in the streaming kind of data. If you have more than one server lost, or if the disaster causes more damage, sometimes maybe we may lose a replica also. That is the reason by replicating multiple copies, we make sure that at any cost, we don't lose any kind of data. That is the purpose we create the replica. Let me throw some light on brokers. In the diagram, you have seen brokers also. These are nothing but a simple system responsible for maintaining the published data. Whatever the data published by the producers, this is going to be maintained by these brokers. Each broker may have either 0 partition or more partitions for each topic. In this diagram, we have 3 brokers, and each broker is having 1 partition. Of course, that is the scenario here. But overall, there is no need to have equal number of brokers. Okay, you can have unequal number of brokers when compared with the partitions in the topic. Based upon that, some broker may have zero number of partitions assigned, and some broker may have more number of partitions assigned also. It doesn't matter. I'll explain you how. If there are n partitions in a topic, and if there are n number of brokers, in that case, each broker will have one partition. That is what I have shown you in the diagram. In another scenario, if there are n partitions in a topic and more than n number of brokers are available, in that case, what happens? The first n brokers will have one partition and the next m brokers will not have any partition for that particular topic, because we cannot split a partition. So a partition will be allocated to each broker, because here the number of brokers are more than the number of partitions we have, so that few brokers will get the partitions and few brokers doesn't get any partition. In that case, they are having zero number of partitions. And in another scenario, let us think about it. If there are n partitions in a topic and we have less than n brokers, in that case, what happens? Each broker will have one partition and the remaining partitions can be distributed again among the brokers. So some of the brokers may have to handle more than one partition. So it's not, there is no rule saying that how many partitions a broker can handle. It's all depends upon the number of partitions in the topic and the number of brokers available. But the last scenario, what I discussed, like, having less number of brokers than the number of partitions in the topic is not recommended, because we cannot give the equal load. There will be unequal load distribution among the broker, but still it is possible. There is no restriction at all. So I hope you understand all the terminologies, what I said, what I explained it to you, like topic, partition, replication, partition offset, broker, etc. So now let us try to understand what is the term called as Kafka cluster. Because as you see, the Kafka is having more than one broker. If any Kafka is having more than one broker, that is called as a Kafka cluster. Having multiple brokers in one single environment as a single entity is called as Kafka cluster. As I told you, you can expand this at any time without any downtime, because you can keep adding as many brokers as you want to the cluster. It will not impact the existing brokers in the cluster. So these clusters are used to manage the persistency and replication of message data. Already I told you, these brokers are going to manage the data what we publish to the topic, and this data is going to be stored and written to the disk in the form of committed logs, so that they are persistent. Because we are defining the replication factor, the same data will be replicated in other broker disks also, so that it is persistent and it is replicated, so that consumers can consume this at any point of time without losing any message with best performance. So here the Kafka cluster is heart of the runtime environment, and remaining all are the configuration concepts. And in the diagram you have seen producers also. If you ask me who is the producer, as I told you, these producers also called as the publishers. They are going to publish the messages to one or more Kafka topics. It's the choice of the producer to which topic they are publishing, etc. And generally these producers send data to the Kafka brokers. So every time a producer publish a message to a broker, the broker simply appends the message to the last segment file. We call it as offset. Actually the message will be appended to the partition. So if a producer send a message to the same partition, one more offset will be added. It is appended. It's keep on adding. And producer can also send message to a partition of their choice. I mean, generally they can publish it. Otherwise, they can choose a particular partition and they can send it to the partition of their choice. That is also possible. And when you talk about consumers, consumers read data from brokers, as you understand. These consumers are going to subscribe to the topics. They can subscribe, of course, one topic or more than one topic, and they can also consume published messages by pulling data from the brokers. So publishers are pushing the data and consumers are pulling the data. Meanwhile, this data is organized in the form of topics, and for the easy handling, these topics are divided into partitions, and all these messages are handled by different Kafka cluster members called as Kafka brokers. Each partition is associated with a broker, and again, to maintain the availability and to prevent the data loss, we are maintaining the replication as well. And if you observe, if you remember the diagram, in the diagram, when you have three brokers, one of the broker is marked as leader. What is that actually? This leader is the node responsible for all reads and writes for the given partition. So if you have a particular partition, that partition read and write is responsible to the leader only. So in that diagram, I have shown only one leader, but in fact, each partition has one server acting as the leader. Say for example, if I have a partition and if I define the replication factor as 3, and if I have 3 cluster nodes, in that case, what happens? One of the Kafka broker will be elected as a leader. Say for example, broker 1 is elected as a leader for partition 1. In that case, always that leader is responsible to read the message from that partition, and it is responsible to write the message to the partition always. But in the remaining servers, the data will be replicated. In that case, the remaining brokers are called as followers. So we need to understand this concept also. So as we already discussed, the node which follows leader instructions are called as follower. If the leader fails, one of the follower will automatically become the new leader, so that the read and write process will continue without any delay or without any obstruction, so that we are giving the guaranteed message delivery. So it's a continuous leader election process is there. Kafka itself will elect its leader, depends upon multiple factors. So actually what happens, the leader is responsible for read and write, but the follower acts like a normal consumer. What it will do, it keeps pulling the messages up to date in its own data store, because it is the replication copy. So the original consumers are going to get the messages and they are consuming. Meanwhile, the followers also pull the data from the leader and they will maintain a copy of it. So all these are the terms, and this is what happens. I hope by this time you got a clear picture on this Kafka architecture. So by default, by combining multiple Kafka brokers, we create a cluster. In that cluster, it is going to store the messages and it's going to write the messages to the disk. And to maintain efficient read and write, there will be a dedicated broker to take care of one partition of the topic that is called as leader. To avoid the ambiguity, once a partition is associated with one broker, that broker is only responsible to read and write. But still, in case of the failure of the leader, we should not lose the message. Because of that, we maintain the replicas. So the replication is going to be maintained in the follower nodes. So if you put it all together, I mean, in the previous diagram, I mentioned the topics, partitions, and all to make you understand. If you see the runtime architecture of Kafka ecosystem, it will be like this. In the Kafka ecosystem, we are going to have Kafka cluster. As I told you, this Kafka builds upon Zookeeper. It is using Zookeeper for the maintaining the state of the topic. I mean, it maintains how many messages are pushed and how many messages are consumed by which consumer. Like that, any synchronization of the data and any data persistency will be in the Zookeeper. So that what happens, producer push a message and that message will be pushed to one of the partition, and the broker, which is acting as a leader to that partition, will read that message and store it, will write that message into the disk. And at the same time, that broker will update that offset into the Zookeeper. Actually, whenever the moment the brokers are started, the broker ID is published to the zookeeper. So before going to produce and push the message to these brokers, the producer will get the Kafka broker ID from the zookeeper, and then it will send the message to the particular Kafka broker based upon its ID. And again, even whenever the consumer is trying to pull the message, it will go and get the broker ID, and also it will consume the message, but it has to have the history, because in the point-to-point messaging, once the message is consumed, that is not available. But this is publish and subscription kind of mechanism. So one or more consumers can consume the message multiple times. So because of that, each consumer has to maintain their own history, up to what offset, up to what message they have consumed, and what they have to consume next and all. So that is the reason the moment it is pulled the message, it is going to update the offset to the zookeeper. So both the producers and consumers are getting their broker IDs and offset values from the zookeeper. And again, Kafka clusters also keep writing data to the zookeeper. So here the role of zookeeper is very important as a synchronization technology. Yeah, already I told you, but let me elaborate more on this. As we discussed, Kafka cluster typically consists multiple brokers to maintain load balance, but these brokers are stateless. So they use Zookeeper for maintaining their cluster state. One Kafka broker instance can handle hundreds of thousands of reads and writes per second, and each broker can handle TB of messages without performance impact. That is the capability of Kafka. So the Kafka broker leader election can be done by Zookeeper. Already we discussed a partition is associated with one broker, then that broker is called as leader, and then we are going to have that leader is going to have the followers. Because of any reason, if the leader is failed, it has to elect some other follower as the leader. That election is also taken care by the Zookeeper, which is associated with it. Okay, let us throw some light on Zookeeper and let us try to understand what is the role of this Zookeeper. This Zookeeper is used for managing and coordinating Kafka broker. So it maintains the status of the Kafka cluster, and also it is coordinating with the Kafka brokers. This Zookeeper service is mainly used to notify producer and consumer about the presence of any new broker in the Kafka system or failure of the broker in the Kafka system. If you remember, I told you it is scalable and you can keep adding as many brokers as you want to this Kafka cluster. In that case, the producers and consumers should know, because the producers will send the message to the brokers and the consumers consume messages from the brokers. Because of that, the moment a new cluster is added, a new broker is added to the Kafka cluster, it will publish its ID to the Zookeeper. And the moment a broker is failed, that ID will be removed. So all Kafka broker IDs are stored in the Zookeeper. So from the Zookeeper, this producer and consumer will get the availability of these brokers. So as per the notification received by the Zookeeper regarding presence or failure of the broker, then producer and consumer takes decision and starts coordinating their task with some other broker. So they are notified when a new broker is joined, and they are notified when the new broker is failed, so that they can coordinate and they can decide with which broker they can work with. And how producers behaves like this, as you know, producers push data to the brokers, but when the new broker is started, all the producers search it and automatically send a message to that new broker. So it's not required. Automatically the brokers will get the producers will get the broker ID, and they start sending the data. Kafka producer does not wait for acknowledgements from the broker and sends messages as fast as broker can handle. So there is no acknowledgement system. The producer can keep publishing the data. That's it. If the broker is handling, the broker can get the data and it can write and it can persist it. That's it. So the producer don't wait for the acknowledgement. It does not require. So that is one of the reason again why large amount of messages can be processed by these Kafka brokers. And how the consumers behaves. As we discussed, these Kafka brokers are stateless. That means the consumer has to maintain how many messages have been consumed by using partition offset, because Kafka will not maintain anything. Consumer has to maintain its own record, how many message offsets it is consumed. So if the consumer acknowledges a particular message offset, it implies that the consumer has consumed all prior messages. Say for example, if a consumer says offset 10, obviously Kafka understands that it is the 10th message consumed by the consumer. So by default, all the previous messages are consumed. But of course, the consumer issues an asynchronous pull request to the broker to have a buffer of bytes ready to consume. So here also there is no need whether it is updated the offset or not. It can pull many messages at a time, and all these messages can be stored in the buffer so it reads quickly. The data will be ready to be consumed in the memory buffer. So like because of this mechanism, the Kafka can handle huge amount of data. Basically what happens, the consumers can rewind or skip to any point in a partition simply by supplying an offset value. Basically when the producers are publishing the data, the offset value keep adding because it is updating data in the partition and it is handled by the broker. But for the consumers, there is no restriction. A consumer can read up to 100 offsets. Let us imagine that as 100 messages are consumed, but at the same time, it can reset. Again, it can go back and it can start reading from 50th offset. Otherwise, it can go and jump. It can consume a particular offset of the message which is having 200, etc. It's all depends upon their programmatic needs. That flexibility is there for the consumer, because what happens here is Kafka broker does not involve in pushing the data. Consumers are going to pull the data. At the same time, multiple consumers can pull the data. That is the reason there is no control and there is no involvement of Kafka broker to maintain how many offsets a consumer is pulled or utilized. So consumers themselves decide what offset message has to be pulled, and they can rewind, they can go forward. That is in their hands actually. But this consumer offset value is notified by Zookeeper. So Zookeeper maintains which consumer consumed the message of a particular offset. So that is the recent offset consumed by the consumer, so that it comes to know. Even consumer can maintain a record up to which partition it is consumed. So that is the mechanism and that is the role of the Zookeeper here. So Kafka is simply a collection of topics split into one or more partitions, and a Kafka partition is linearly ordered sequence of messages where each message is identified by their index. We call that index as offset. All the data in a Kafka cluster is the disjointed union of partitions. I mean to say everything is independent, they are not jointed, at the same time they are union. That is how the data is managed by Kafka cluster. So as we discussed, the incoming messages are written at the end of a partition and the messages are sequentially read by the consumers. So the messages are going to be appended so that it keeps adding the offset values like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 like that. And consumers also will read them sequentially based upon offset numbers. Of course, as I told you, consumer has the capability to go and read the messages from any offset. They can rewind, they can go forward, but generally they read in sequence because there should be a meaningful mechanism. Durability is provided by replicating messages to different brokers. As we discussed, the leader is going to store the messages to the disk inits, but to maintain durability, it is also replicating to other brokers. This Kafka provides both PubSub and queue-based messaging system in a fast, reliable, persisted, fault tolerance, and a zero downtime manner. That is what is Kafka. Now let us try to understand its workflow. I mean, till now we discussed what is Kafka and what are the features, what is its architecture, and what are the different components involved, and how they will produce and how they handle, etc. Now let us try to understand what is its workflow. Producers simply send the message to a topic, and consumers can choose any one type of messaging system depending on their need. So if it is implementing PubSub messaging system, as I told you, Kafka can implement PubSub messaging system. At the same time, Kafka can implement point-to-point messaging system also. Consumer can decide. If it is PubSub messaging system, what is the workflow? Here, producers send a message to a topic at regular intervals. And Kafka brokers store all messages in the partitions configured for that particular topic. And it ensures the messages are equally shared between partitions, because to maintain the load, if a producer is pushing the messages, say for example in a topic, if you have 3 partitions, if your producer published 100 messages, there is no point if one single partition is overloaded, so it will try to distribute all the messages to all the partitions. So if the producer send 2 messages and there are 2 partitions, Kafka will store one message in first partition and second message in second partition. That is the way how it maintains. And consumers are going to subscribe to a specific topic. Once the consumer subscribe to a topic, Kafka will provide the current offset of the topic to the consumer and also save the offset in the Zookeeper ensemble. I mean, the storage um, Zookeeper ensemble is going to store this offset. So consumer will request the Kafka in a regular interval. For example, you can say for every 100 milliseconds, it will request for the message, for a new message. Once Kafka receive the messages from producers, it forward the message to the consumer. So that is the workflow it happens. So it is well systematic, disciplined manner. It is going to be maintained. The environment is going to be maintained. It is taking care of persistency. It is taking care of reliability. It is taking care of performance, and it is taking care of throughput capability as well. So here consumer will receive the message and process it. Once the messages are processed, consumer will send an acknowledgement to the Kafka broker. Once Kafka receives an acknowledgement, it changes the offset to the new value and update it to the Zookeeper. Since offsets are maintained in the Zookeeper, the consumer can read the next message correctly even during server outages, because it's recording what is the offset and all. Even though if that server fails, if that broker fails, even though it is recovered from the failure, no problem, because the memory consumption is based upon the offset. That is the advantage here, so that it will not miss anything. So the same flow, whatever I have explained, will repeat until the consumer stops the request. So consumer has the option to rewind, to skip to the desired offset of a topic at any time, and it will read all the subsequent messages. Of course, if the consumer wants, it can maintain. Otherwise, it will be a regular and sequential mechanism. So the messages are stored into the multiple partitions, and in each partition, the offset value will be maintained, and the Kafka cluster will keep updating the Zookeeper, and the consumer will connect to one of the broker, and consumer will request for the message to be consumed. Once it receives the message from the Kafka broker, once it is consumed, it will update, it will send the acknowledgement. Once it receives the acknowledgement from the consumer, Kafka broker will update the offset value. So like that, it is maintaining the status of the consumption in the Zookeeper. It understands the status of each consumer, how many offsets they consumed and what next they have to consume it. So that is the way how it is working in the proper manner. This is the workflow. And now let us talk about another workflow called as queue messaging. Instead of PubSub, if it is queue messaging or if it is consumer group, how it works. In a queue messaging system, instead of a single consumer, a group of consumers having the same group ID will subscribe to a topic. In the earlier scenario, what happens? Multiple consumers are there. Individually, they have subscribed to the topics and they got the messages. But in this workflow, multiple consumers can group as a single group, and all the consumers are having the same group ID so that they can consume. In simple terms, consumers subscribing to a topic with the same group ID are considered as a single group, and the messages are shared among them. So producers send a message to a topic in a regular interval, and Kafka stores all messages in the partitions configured for that particular topic, similar to the scenario what we discussed. So the Kafka stores all the messages in their partitions, and in each and every partition it is going to maintain the message offsets, etc. Then what happens? A single consumer subscribes to a specific topic. Let us assume the topic it is consumed is topic 01 with group ID as group 1. So the Kafka interacts with the consumer in the same way as PubSub messaging only until the new consumer subscribes the same topic. So for example, again, the new consumer is also consumed for the same topic with the same group ID as group 1. In that case, once the new consumer arrives, Kafka switches its operation to share mode and share the data between the two consumers. So if you have only one consumer, it's okay. But if you have more than one consumer subscribed for the same topic with the same group ID, Kafka treats them as consumer groups so that the data will be shared between these two consumers. This sharing will go on until the number of consumers reach the number of partition configured for that particular topic. Okay, so once the number of consumer exceeds the number of partition, the new consumer will not receive any further message until any of the existing consumer unsubscribes. It is exactly like how a partition is assigned with a broker. Like that, it is assigning a partition with a consumer in the consumer group. Again, like how we take a Kafka cluster with the combination of brokers, like that here also it is considering a consumer group. In that consumer group, we have the consumers available so that it is going to share. In case if you have more number of consumers than the number of partitions, one partition will be allocated to one consumer and the remaining consumers will become idle. If any consumer is unsubscribed, then they will be allocated. This scenario arises because each consumer in Kafka will be assigned a minimum of one partition, and once all the partitions are assigned to the existing consumers, the new consumers will have to wait. So this workflow is called as consumer queue messaging and consumer group workflow. I hope it is clear. So we discussed the basics, the architecture, the components, and how it works, and what is the workflow, etc. And we also discussed that Kafka is using Zookeeper. The role of Zookeeper is very important. Let's clarify ourselves on the Zookeeper role in Kafka environment. A critical dependency of Apache Kafka is Apache Zookeeper. This is a distributed configuration and synchronization service. So this here, Zookeeper serves as a coordination interface between Kafka brokers and Kafka consumers. By this time, you might understand with the workflow I have explained earlier. So the Kafka servers share information via a Zookeeper cluster. Again, Zookeeper is also maintaining its own cluster. So these servers, Kafka servers, are sharing information via Zookeeper clusters. So Kafka stores basic metadata in Zookeeper. What is that metadata? It's information like the topics, information about topics, information about brokers, information about consumer offsets. All these data is called as metadata. This entire metadata is stored in the Zookeeper. I mean, if you understand the workflow, what I have explained, you might have get the communications properly, and you might get how exactly the zookeeper is playing the role and what sort of data is stored in this zookeeper. Since all the critical information is stored in the zookeeper, if the zookeeper fails, again, the Kafka cluster will become crippled. That is the reason it normally replicates this data across its ensemble. So not only Kafka cluster, zookeeper is also maintaining a cluster of ensembles. So it is going to replicate the data within their ensemble. So failure of a Kafka broker or failure of a zookeeper does not affect the state of the Kafka cluster. So here the synchronization broker is having its cluster and Kafka broker is having its own cluster. Kafka will restore the state once the zookeeper restarts, because it is replicating. Once the zookeeper is restarted, it will maintain the state at what time, at what state it is done, etc. So this gives zero downtime for Kafka. And again, as we discussed, we have the leaders. I told you, right, the leader election is also depends on the zookeeper. So the leader election between the Kafka broker is also done by using zookeeper in the event of leader failure. So the role of zookeeper is also very crucial here in this environment. So I have explained you all the basics. I think I made you understand what is the flow and all. Let me quickly explain you. If you want to install this Kafka into your machines, and if you want to set up this, what are the steps involved? This Kafka, Zookeeper and all are Java based. We need the Java environment. That is the reason, first of all, we have to make sure that we have Java installed in our machine. If you want to verify whether this Java is installed or not, you can use the command called java-version. So after executing this command, if you find out that Java is successfully installed on the machine, you could see the version. If in case if it is not there, you can download this Java and you can install it, and you make sure that you can recognize the Java version. And once you have this Java, you have to install Zookeeper framework. So for that purpose, we have to download the Zookeeper. Of course, I'm not mentioning the location of the downloads. You can go to Apache website and you can download it. As of now, the latest version of Zookeeper is 3.4.6. So that once you download it, you will get a file like this, zookeeper-3.4.6.tar.zz. So just once you downloaded it, you just extract the file. So once you extract this file by using tar command, because it is gz file, you can give tar-zxf and the file name. It will create a folder like zookeeper-3.4.6. Like that, a folder will be created, and then you can enter into that folder. So once you enter into the folder, you can see a subfolder called as conf. In that conf subfolder, you can see a file called as zoo.cfg. This is called as configuration file of Zookeeper. So you can open the configuration file. A default file will be there. You can open that configuration file by using any text editor like VI or ZEdit. It depends upon. Once you go and open that by using VI, you can see the details like this. You can see a parameter called tick time. If you see this example here, the tick time is 2000, and you can see the data directory. That means where the data is stored for this Zookeeper, and what is the client port. That means by using which port the clients of Zookeeper can communicate. Say for example, the Kafka brokers can communicate with the Zookeeper by using port number 2181, and you can specify init limit and you can specify sync limit. What is this? First of all, I'll explain you about tick time. Basically, to maintain the communication and to maintain the status of the clusters, this Zookeeper will use a heartbeat mechanism among its own cluster members, and also when it is communicating with the Kafka members. So the interval, the time interval when it is trying to reach all these components is called as tick time. Generally, you can say that tick time is 1 unit of its polling interval. This time 2000 is nothing but 2000 milliseconds by default. And already you know the data directory, I don't require to explain, and already you know the client port. And what is this init limit? I mean, initially up to 5 tick times, it can hold on, it can wait to understand whether that broker is failed or not. And what is the sync limit? The data is going to be synchronized, right? The data will be synchronized up to the 2 tick times. So this is all about how Zookeeper works. This configuration is there. These are the default values. You can get it. Of course, you can modify them, depends upon your requirement. So then you are done, you are installed, your Zookeeper configuration is ready. Then you can start this Zookeeper. If you go to that same Zookeeper folder, there will be a bin directory. In that bin directory, you can see a file like zkserver.sh. So just you say zkserver.sh space start. It will start the Zookeeper. And once you start the Zookeeper, the command will be executed and you can see the response like this. It shows JMX enabled by default. You know, JMX stands for Java Management Extensions. I mean, Java is having an API called as JMX API. So the entire Java infrastructure, the Java based applications and environments are going to be managed and communicated through this JMX API only. So here it is also enabling the JMX so that Zookeeper can communicate with the external components, and this JMX will be used for the Zookeeper maintenance also. And then it is using the configuration file. If you look at this, that is the location under Zookeeper 3.4.6. You can see a config folder. In that config folder, there is a file called zoo.cfg. So it is using that configuration, and then it is started. Because whenever it starts, it read the configuration. So it will use the properties what we have given, like data directory, like port number, like tick time, etc. So with this, you can understand that your Zookeeper is up and running. Then after that, you can start Zookeeper CLI. So in the Zookeeper bin directory, you have a file called zkcli.sh. If you execute that CLI, it will be connecting to the Zookeeper server which is running. So it shows like this. The output you can see it is connecting to localhost 2181. If you remember, in the configuration file, the port is mentioned as 2181. So it connects to that host on that port number. Then it will show the data what it is. Then finally it shows the message like welcome to Zookeeper. Then it will display like watcher. It is watched an event state, that is sync connected. The type is none. That means nothing is synced, nothing is connected, and the path is also null like that. And it shows localhost 2181. It is not connected to anything because just we started the Zookeeper and any of the clients are not connected. It is just CLI. So we started the Zookeeper broker, Zookeeper ensemble, and we started its CLI. And if you want to stop the Zookeeper, it's simple. In the same bin directory, you have zkserver.sh start stop. So the same zkserver.sh file will be used with the start and stop variables to start and stop. So with this, I can say that you have successfully installed Java and Zookeeper on the machine. So now let us see how can we install Kafka, because before going to install Kafka, you make sure that you have installed Java and you have installed Zookeeper as well. Now, if you talk about this Kafka installation, again, download the Kafka. I can say for example, if the latest version is Kafka 2.11, you can download. The file name looks like this, Kafka 2.11 some digits.tzz. And as usual, like in the case of Zookeeper, you please extract this file by using tar so that it will create a folder and then enter into the folder. The folder name will be like this, Kafka, some extension. Then once you enter into the Kafka, again in the Kafka folder, you have a bin directory. There you can see Kafka server start.sh. So you can run this command Kafka server start.sh, and you have to specify the configuration. So in the config folder, you can have a property file, and it is going to use that server.property file. You can give the values in this property file. So while starting the server, it will use the values given in this property file. So that is the way how the Kafka will be started. So now let us implement a single node, a single broker configuration. Already you know the Kafka cluster can have multiple nodes. Node is nothing but a machine, I can say, and within that machine you can have n number of brokers. So if you want to implement a Kafka environment with a single machine and with a single broker, how to do that? First, we are going to set up that environment, and after that, we are going to make it multi-broker environment into a single node. I'll discuss that so that you can at least understand how to set up this environment. So if you want to go and set up this cluster, we want to make sure that we have started the Zookeeper, because by default Kafka cluster uses Zookeeper. Already you know, if you want to start the Zookeeper from the Kafka itself, I mean, you can start the Zookeeper from the Zookeeper bin directory. That is one way. Otherwise, from the Kafka bin directory itself, you can have a command called zookeeper server.start, and in the same config folder you will have zookeeper.properties. Here it will have the details of Zookeeper, where the Zookeeper is installed, etc. So that from the Kafka environment itself you can give this command zookeeper server start, and you have to give the Zookeeper property file so that that Zookeeper will be started. And after that you have to start the Kafka broker. So if you want to start the Kafka broker, as we discussed, the same command Kafka server start.sh, and give the server.properties file of Kafka. So once after starting the Kafka broker, if you go to the Zookeeper terminal and if you type the command called jps, it will show the processes. You can see, you can get these three responses like this, say 8 to 1 quorum peer main, and 9 to 8 Kafka, 931 JPS, etc. What is that? Here you could see two daemons running on the terminal. One of the daemon is quorum peer main, it is the Zookeeper daemon, and another one is the Kafka daemon. So one is the JPS. Like that you can see three daemons are running. So quorum peer main is Zookeepers and another one is Kafka. So that we can understand that the Kafka is able to communicate with the Zookeeper. Being Zookeeper is a synchronized environment, it understands how many daemons are running, and they're having their own IDs as well in the Zookeeper. So the Zookeeper is recognizing the Kafka server start and up. So now let us see how can we create a single broker configuration in a single node. So basically what we do is, in this configuration we are going to have a single Zookeeper and broker ID instance. So if you want to create it, what we do, we create, I mean, because already you have started a Kafka server. Whenever you give Kafka start server.sh, it is already started a broker. For that purpose you have given one property file, and already you have started a Zookeeper. So in this case, what already it is there, the environment is a single broker environment within the single node. So you have a single Zookeeper and a single Kafka node broker instance. So you can configure it. How can you configure? Because once you have the Kafka broker, you can create topics. So if you want to create a Kafka topic, what we do, we have a command line tool. By default, Kafka provides a command line tool. There is a utility called Kafka topics.sh in the bin directory. So by using this utility, you can create the topics on the particular server. So this topic is associated with the broker which is already started. So for that, open a new terminal and type the command. See here, I'm giving an example. If you open a new terminal and if you go to the Kafka bin directory, here you can give Kafka topics.sh -- create, then -- Zookeeper. We are giving where is the Zookeeper running, that is hostname .2181. So it indicates that the Zookeeper is running on localhost on port number 2181. And then we are going to mention the replication factor, because I told you, right, for each and every topic there should be a replication factor. Because we have only one broker, I have given the replication factor as 1. That means it maintains only one copy. And you can mention the number of partitions, -- partitions. Again, I want to have only one partition. As we discussed, if you have more number of brokers, we can maintain multiple number of partitions. and you can give the topic name. So now here you are creating a topic, and for that topic you are defining the number of replications and number of partitions and where the Zookeeper server is running. So if you look at the example I'm giving like this: Kafka topics, create Zookeeper, localhost 2181, replication factor 1, partitions 1, and the topic name is Hello Kafka. So if this command is executed successfully, it indicates that we just created a topic named Hello Kafka with a single partition and one replication factor. So like this, we can set up Kafka environment, and also we can create a topic. So once you have a topic, the producers can push the messages to the topic and consumers can consume the messages from that topic. So once you run that command, it will show the output like this. It says created topic Hello Kafka. That kind of output you can see. So once the topic has been created, you can get the notification in the Kafka broker terminal window and the log for the created topic. So because in the server properties, you will specify the log location. So wherever you specified the log location, in that location, you can get the log also. So this log will be mentioned, this log location will be mentioned in the file, server properties file, which is there in the config folder. So like that, you can see the topic is created and the relevant log is also created. Suppose if you are not sure how many topics are there in associated with that broker, yes, you can see the list of topics. So to get a list of topics in the Kafka server, you can use Kafka topics -list command. So this Kafka topics command will be used to create and to list, etc. So here in the Kafka bin directory, I can go and execute Kafka topics.sh -list, and then I say Zookeeper address. I'll give --zookeeper localhost dot colon 2181, because everything is maintained. The status is maintained in Kafka, I mean Zookeeper. That is the reason always we mention Zookeeper in each and every command. So that what happens, it will go and read how many topics are created on that broker, and it will display. Here, if you look at this, we are not giving the broker port number and we are not specifying any broker name. Simply we are giving the list of topics recorded and registered with the Zookeeper ensemble. But anyway, here in this case, only one node is running and that node is having only one topic registered. So that topic will be listed. That you can see the output like a Hello Kafka. So like that, you can create topics and you can list the topics. Now, how can you send and receive the messages? You can start a producer and you can send the message, because by default in this Kafka, there is a default producer utility is there. So in the bin directory, there is a utility called Kafka console producer. You can call Kafka console producer.sh, and again we specify --broker list. Here you have to specify your Kafka broker details. Here, your Kafka broker, you have only one Kafka broker, and let us imagine that Kafka broker is running on port number 9092. So you will give --broker list, and we give the host name colon port number, and we are giving the topic --topic name. So this is the syntax. So while you are running this producer, you are specifying what is your target broker, to which broker you want to send the message, and to which topic you want to send the message. That is the reason we have given both. So in this syntax, there are two main parameters are there. One is broker list, the list of brokers that we want to send the message to. Of course, if you have multiple brokers, you can list multiple brokers in the brokers list. But in our case, we have only one broker, so we mentioned only that broker. And the second thing is the broker details. You may get how to get the broker details, etc. If you go to the config directory of the Kafka, and if you see the server.properties, this file contains the broker port ID. So you can find out. But anyway, we know that where the broker is running. So as per this, let us imagine This broker is running on port number 9092, so that we have given like that. And the second parameter what you have given is topic name. As you know, we have to give to which topic also, because one broker can have multiple topics defined and associated. So here we have done this. So after considering these things, our command looks like this. So we go and run the command Kafka console producer.sh, and we give -- broker list. Here we are specifying the host name and port number, and then we specify the topic name as well, so that the producer can able to push and publish a message to the topic called as Hello Kafka, which is associated with a broker called as broker, which is running at localhost 9092. Now what happens whenever you run this command, the producer will wait on input from the standard input and publish to the Kafka cluster. So because we are running this command in the command prompt, so that you will get the prompt, so you can type the messages whatever you want. So whatever the type messages you are typing, it will publish all these messages to that particular topic which is associated with the broker. By default, every new line is published as a new message. So then the default producer properties are specified in the producer.properties. If you go to the configuration, how the producer behaves, you can see all these things from the producer.properties file. So now you have started your producer, it's listening, and you can type your messages, etc. So now you can type a few lines of messages in the terminal. For example, you can type like this: hello, my first message, my second message, like that. So if you run this command Kafka console producer, it will display like this. This is the date and timestamp when it is, and it will show some warning, and then it keep listening for you. So this hello, my first message, my second message, all these are the messages typed by me, so that it will treat this as three different messages, and it publish all these three messages to the topic called as Hello Kafka. So this topic is handled by the Kafka broker, and it is going to write these messages to the disk according to the properties given in the server.properties. So once we produce the message, let us see how can we consume the message. So we can start consumer to receive the messages also. So similar to producer, the default consumer properties also specified in the config folder of Kafka. Here you can go and see consumer.properties file, and in this file you can see all the consumer properties. So again, open a new terminal, because one terminal is acting like a producer and another terminal is acting like a consumer. So open a new terminal and you can type the syntax for consuming the messages. How you can give Kafka consumer.sh, and you give -- zookeeper. You are giving the zookeeper host name and port number, and you can give the topic name -- topic name, and -- from beginning, because I told you, right, consumer can able to consume the messages from any particular offset. So here you can give offset number from which offset it wants to consume, but when I give from beginning, it will consume from the first message. So that is the syntax, and the example is also like this. So we give Kafka console consumer.sh, zookeeper is localhost 2181, and the topic name is hello Kafka -- from beginning, so that it will show the output like this: hello, my first message, and my second message. Because as of now, three messages are stored on the disk as a part of the topic, and this is handled by the broker. So whenever the consumer is started consuming, whenever you say from the beginning, it will consume all the messages one after one. So this is what is finally, after understanding what is Kafka and after knowing how to install it, you are able to enter the message from the producer, and you can see them from the consumer terminal also. So I hope it has given you a fair understanding of how to set up this environment with a single broker. Suppose if you want to configure multiple brokers, how do you configure? I mean, you can have multiple nodes and multiple brokers. As I told you, each node is representing a machine. So now in this scenario, I want to set up a multi-broker cluster in the single node. So again, before moving on to the multi-broker cluster setup, we start our broker server. And once the broker is started, we can create multiple Kafka brokers. So how do we create it? Because already we have one Kafka broker, one instance is there. That instance is using server.properties file in the config folder. So now if we need multiple broker instances, we need multiple property files, because each broker instance will have their own properties. For that purpose, copy that existing server.properties file into new config files, and you can rename them like this: server1.properties and server2.properties, etc. So you can rename these property files. So like this, each broker is using its own properties. All these properties are stored in the config folder. Now you open edit, you open this new file, because simply we copied it, and then you have to open this server1.properties, and you have to make some changes, because this property file will have a field called broker.id. So in one single cluster, the Kafka broker IDs should be unique. So if you imagine, the first broker ID would be 0, and for this server one, I mean the default broker ID would be 0, and for the server one, I can give the broker ID as 1. So the ID of the broker you are mentioning here, it must be set to a unique integer for each broker. That is the reason we have to enter it. And also you have to specify the server listening port. As you know, the default broker is listening on 9092. Here we give this broker listen port is 9093. And after that, you can give the list of directories under which it can store the log files. You can give one or more directories, and if you have more directories, you can separate them with commas. So here I can mention the log directory. So like this, these three values we are seeing, and we make sure that all these three values are unique to each and every broker, so that we can avoid conflicts. Like that, you can configure server2.properties file also. Again, here I'm giving the broker ID as 2 and the broker port number as 9094, and also I can specify multiple log directories which are comma separated. So once we define all these brokers, you can start these multiple brokers after all changes have been made in these three servers. So in this case, now we open three terminals, we open three new terminals, and we start each broker one after one. For example, if you want to start broker one, I'll open this file Kafka server start.sh in the Kafka bin directory, and I'm going to specify which property file to use to start this broker. So for example, I can give config/server.properties. Then that broker will start, and it is ready to listen from the producer and to handle the messages. Again, if I give Kafka server start.sh, and if I give the property file name, that is config server-1.properties, another broker will be started by using the properties specified in this. So the first broker is using 9092, and the second broker is using 9093 as the port number, and both are having two different unique IDs, etc. And after that, you can open one more terminal. In that third terminal, you can start the third broker. For that purpose, I can use the command like, Kafka server start.sh, and you are giving server2.properties, so that this broker will be started by using the property files in this location. So with this, we have three terminals and three brokers are up and running. These are ready to use. So now we have three different brokers running on the machine. Okay, so if you go and type JPS in the Zookeeper terminal, then you can see the response, like you can see each daemon, etc. So now let us create a topic which is suitable to this, because we already have a topic, but the topic is having one single partition and one replica. So now let us assign the replication factor value as 3 for this topic, because we have three different brokers running, so it can maintain three replicas. So if you have two brokers, then the assigned replica value will be 2, like that. So now what I'm doing, I'm creating a topic by using Kafka topics.sh. I'm hyphen create. I'm specifying the zookeeper details where it is running, and I'm giving the replication factor as 3 and partition 1. Of course, you can have either one partition or multiple partitions. It is up to you. But here I'm taking only one partition, and the topic name I have to give. And if you see the example, I can give like this. What is that? Kafka topics.sh, create zookeeper, and the zookeeper host name and port number, and I can give the zookeeper replication factor, and I can give the partitions, and the topic name I'm giving it as multi-broker application. So like this, I have created a topic which is having one partition and 3 replication factor. So then once you execute this, it shows the output like it's created a topic called as multi-broker application. Then the describe command is used to check which broker is listening on the current created topic. So the describe command in the Kafka can be used to identify which broker is listening on the current created topic. So how can you use this? In the Kafka bin folder, use kafka topics.sh hyphen describe and give the zookeeper details like zookeeper host name and port number, and give the topic name. The topic name is like multi-broker application, whatever you have given. Then it shows the output like this. It shows the topic name is multi-broker application, partition count is 1, replication factor is 3. So it is describing the topic. And it shows the topic configurations also, it shows as a part of the output. It shows the topic is multi-broker replication, partition 0, leader 0. That means what? The broker which is having ID 0 is the leader of this partition. And what are the replicas? Because we defined 3 replicas, 0, 2 and 1 are the replicas. So broker 0, broker 2 and broker 1 are the replicas. That means the same partition is replicated in all these brokers. And ISR, this is the sync, whether the data is synchronized across all these brokers or not. That ISR is also showing the same 3. In this output, we can conclude that the first line gives a summary of all the partitions, shows topic name, partition count, and the replication factor that we have chosen already, that is defined by us. The second line, each node will be the leader for a randomly selected portion of the partition. I mean, if you have multiple nodes, each node will have a leader, but here anyway we have only one partition, so only one leader. In our case, we see that the first broker, that is broker ID with 0 is the leader. Then the replicas 0 to 1 means that all the brokers replicate the topic finally. ISR is the set of in sync replicas. So how many replicas are in sync? So generally, if you don't see any ID in the in sync replica, you can suspect that that particular broker is not running. But here the in sync is as same as the number of replicas. So all the brokers can able to replicate the data very well. So this is the subset of replicas that are currently alive and caught up by the leader. So like this, when you start the brokers, and you can see the details of the topic, and how many partitions are there, and what is the replication factor, and which leader is assigned to the which partition, like that you can see by using describe command. And now again we can start the producer to send the message. So again, the producer is the same. We are going to use the inbuilt producer. So we use Kafka console producer.sh hyphen broker list. In this broker list, I'm giving localhost 9092 because 9092 is the leader. As I told you, only the leader is responsible to read and write. So I'm giving only the localhost 9092 in the broker list. I'm not giving the replicas because the other brokers are only for the replication purpose, but they're not doing anything here. And I'm giving the topic name as multi-broker application. So once I execute this command, it shows the output like this. Then it is ready and it is listening. Whatever the message we type and press enter, that message will be pushed. So here I'm typing like this. This is the single node multi-broker demo, and this is the second message. Like that, I have given the messages. I have typed the message in the terminal and I pressed enter. And you can start the consumer to receive the messages. So this procedure remains the same as we see in the single broker setup. So we run the command Kafka console consumer.sh, and we give the Zookeeper host name like localhost 2081, etc. Then we are giving the topic name for which topic you want to consume, and you are giving from beginning. As I told you, here you can give the offset name, from which offset you can call it as, etc. So here it shows like this is the single node multi-broker demo, and this is the second message. Like that, it is consuming the message. So like this, we have set up a broker single node multi-broker, and we successfully sent a message, and also we successfully produced a message. For example, if you want to modify something to the topic, what you can do, suppose let us modify a created topic, because first we created one hello topic and after that we created a multi-broker topic. Suppose if I want to modify an existing topic, what is the syntax? I use the same Kafka topics.sh, which is available in the Kafka bin directory, and I specify the Zookeeper Ansible, I mean where it is running, and I give -- alter command. So I'm giving alter, and I'm giving topic name, and I can give the partitions count. For example, initially we created Hello Kafka with single partition. So now I'm increasing the number of partitions. For that purpose, I can use like this Kafka topics.sh, and I specify -- Zookeeper, that is localhost :2181, and I'm giving alter -- alter, and I'm giving the topic name. The topic name is Hello Kafka, and partitions are 2. Like that, you can alter existing partitions. So here we have already created a topic called Hello Kafka with a single partition count and 1 replica factor. So now using alter command, we have changed the partition count. So then how it will show the output? It shows like this. If partitions are increased for a topic that has a key, the partition logic or ordering of the message will be affected, adding partitions succeeded. Because earlier there is only one partition, the messages are associated with the single partition. It is saying that adding more partitions will make the changes to the messages. And finally, it says that adding partitions are succeeded. Like this, you can see the message. Suppose if you want to delete a topic, how can you do that? If you want to delete a topic, you can use the syntax like Kafka topics.sh, and you can specify the Zookeeper details, like Zookeeper, where the Zookeeper is running. In our case, it is localhost 2181, and we can give -- delete and -- topic name. For example, if I give Kafka topics.sh Zookeeper localhost -- delete Hello Kafka, so it shows the output like Hello Kafka marked for deletion. So like this, you can make it. Actually, this is the way how we do it. This simply gives you an idea on what is Kafka and how can we work with this Kafka, and you understand the terminology, the architecture, and multiple brokers, multiple partitions, multiple replications, and we have seen how to install it, and where is the locations to be organized. I mean to say, what are the configurations? You can see Zookeeper configuration, and you can see the Kafka configuration, etc. So like this, you can understand everything, and you have seen the commands also. Yeah, because we have planned this for a couple of hours. I hope you got the complete idea. As I told you, you can use this in the case of metrics and in the case of streaming, etc. But again, further, you can write your own producers and your own consumers. Here the default producer and default consumer is there to see the functionality, etc. But in production, when you are really working with it, we can write our own producers and we can write our own consumers. It is nothing but our application. A Java producer, you can write a program by using the Kafka producer API, and you can consume the messages by using Kafka consumer API. But I'm not discussing that part because we need to spend again more time. I hope I have given the complete details on, at least to make you understand what is Kafka and what is the purpose of it and how we use it and what are the similarities and all. So I can suggest you to go and try your hands in exploring further and learning how to develop producers and how to develop consumers and how can we use it, etc. So now I welcome the questions. If you have any questions, you can type these and so that I can answer these questions. Okay. So here I have a question. I mean, for example, because we have multiple messaging systems are there. Say, for example, we have multiple messaging environments are there, like MQ, ActiveMQ, etc. And here the question is how the Kafka is different from these other messaging environments. Yes, of course, as I told you, there are multiple components are there which are used in this messaging middleware. But IBM WebSphere MQ and Apache ActiveMQ, and you have another RabbitMQ, etc. All these are going to work actually to store the messages. All these are going to handle the middleware messages in the form of queues and topics, etc. So you can implement both one-to-one messaging, that is point-to-point messaging, and also you can go and take care of publishing and subscription, etc. But whereas these are mostly best suitable for the enterprise messaging environments. But if you want to deal with a large streaming amount of data, and if you want to go ahead with the streaming, and if you want to utilize for the real-time analysis, this Kafka will be the best choice. So I hope you enjoyed the session. So you can reach back to us for any further assistance. Thank you.